All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Tech Watch Radio, where we keep an eye on tech so you don't have to. I'm Sam Bushman. I work for NetworkProvidersInc.com. You've got a friend when it comes to IT solutions. You've got IT strategists, you've got consultants, you've got know-hows with complicated computer routers and routing and connectivity and endpoints and security, and we can just keep going. We do it all for you at NetworkProvidersInc.com. The website for the show, NPITechGuys.com. This is Tech Watch, radio and TV. We keep an eye on tech so you don't have to. And I've got Jay Harrison with me. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Sam. How's it going?
Absolutely fantastic, my friend. Now, I don't understand this. It just baffles me. It's where tech and politics kind of run aground or get all mixed up. And I don't like it. I don't think it's necessary. But you know what? These politicians do it. So there's an operating system called Linux.
The entire world runs on it.
Is really the internet operating system. Now, I understand you can connect to the internet with others, but the core, the backbone of the internet really is Linux for the most part. Well, they're talking about possibly making it illegal or some crazy. This is a California whacked out. Let's just play the video. We'll talk about it.
Linux will now be illegal in California. Get ready for the nightmare that will be modern operating system legislation. A law was just signed into existence that will force every operating system provider to do age verification at the system level to make sure only the correct ages have access to the correct content that the state deems acceptable. Obviously, this isn't a problem for Microsoft, who forces you to sign in no matter what, but it applies to every type of OS. Mobile, desktop, it's irrelevant. The biggest problem, though, is that Linux isn't built like that. There's typically no central identity that can handle this, and it goes directly against the purpose and spirit of the operating system in the first place. The kicker is that the governor knew the law wasn't good enough to implement and has already asked that it be revised, after it's been signed into the legislature. Companies will have until the end of this year to get into compliance, and then it'll be a fine per user violation, $2,500 USD for unknowing violations and triple that for intentional violations. How this is even remotely enforceable is a mystery, but the free and open age of computers seems to be dying in the hands of lawmakers.
Jay, I don't even know how to respond to this. It's insane. It's incredible. Look, Linux has a lot of security, and it's got user rights, and it's got root control privileges, and it's got all these different things to minimize security concerns and everything else. But it's not designed to debate ages and et cetera. And I'm not saying there can never be anything put in place to do this, but this whole idea is insane because now I'll give you a quick example to make the point. My son got a motorcycle license and he was under 21. And so they have vertical licenses when you're under 21 and horizontal licenses when you're older. And so it's quickly, you can tell, boom. Right? Well, because he had a motorcycle license and he got it right before he turned 21, they made it stay vertical anyway. And so as a result, now he's like 25 years old and he still has this vertical license thing. And it's like, what the heck? Well, that's a minimal example of what I'm talking about, though, that, you know what? There's all kinds of repercussions. And here's the question. What if I give a kid an admin adult login?
Right.
How are you going to know?
How are you going to? Well, this problem, I think, stems from, in general, and this happens on both sides of the aisle. This is not a political thing. It's lawmakers who don't know enough about tech to realize the implications of what they're passing. It seems like a good idea. Hey, age verification. We don't want bad stuff going to minors. We all understand that. But when you pass a law that's so broad that this is affecting everything that runs anything. So your iPhone or Android phones run Linux. Your toaster, if it's a smart toaster, if it has a computer or software of any kind in it,
or some kind of an Android, which is nothing more than a tweaked version of portable Linux kind of a thing, right?
So literally, your toaster will have to age verify according to this law. Now we've already seen
because you might burn the toast if you're under 7, buddy.
We've seen applications. There's a calculator application that's actually getting some publicity over this because they've already pre-passed in anticipation of this happening at the end of the year. They've just said, nope, you can't install this if you live in California. If you live in the state of California, you can't install this calculator app because it's so simple. We don't have any way to age verify in it. And so
you know what?
People are just blacklisting California.
that is the solution, my friend, because if they get blacklisted so
I
much
agree.
to where they can't even function, pretty soon it's like California, you just have to disconnect from the internet, buddy. You're you're out. And
I agree.
I don't mean to be,
That is
I
really
don't mean
the
to be
protest way to
mocking
do it.
because I do think age matters. And I do think protecting the youth and stuff is important. Don't get me
course.
wrong. The problem is we need to have people that can take off the training wheels and really discuss this in a meaningful, productive way. What ways can this be accomplished, and how can we, et cetera? And, there are ways it can be done, but the way they're going about it is absolutely insane.
It is, and especially to pass a law and be like, hey, we know there's gaps and there's problems, but we'll fix that after we pass it. That's not the right way to go about.
You got to wait a
legislation,
couple
I
of
think.
generations, Jay, but what if your toaster's over 21, but the operator is 14?
I don't know. It'll probably. Who's going to have a toaster that's going to last 21 years nowadays, right? Your toaster's going to
I
be
agree, because they'll make them
end of
obsolete
service life,
intentionally.
by 5 years. You can't.
But my
you can't
point
use
is a little bit of
software
a
for
joke that the device is old enough, but the user's not.
Right.
I'm just saying, this is what I mean by it. It's just, I don't think it's doable. I don't know what's going to happen here.
I don't know what's
going
gonna
to
happen either.
Change something.
But something will have to change. We're going to see. And I'm not opposed to everybody just blacklisting California because I think that'll force their hand to do something different. Whereas otherwise, you're going to end up with just like this selective enforcement. It just gets really ugly fast.
Well, and I would say this, though. This idea that at the operating system level, we're going to decide your age verification. You know what? Most things on a computer, listening to an MP3 file, copying a folder or a file from directly to, whatever, those don't need age restrictions or requirements. So we really only need to put the age verification on things that are applicable.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. When you go into a restaurant, you don't have to, at the door, confirm your age.
Or on the bathroom door, right?
Yeah, or on the bathroom door, unless it's a place that requires that. Then they have mechanisms to check your ID or do whatever. We need to think of the internet like the real world, Jay.
Yeah.
And the compliance needs to be on those who have services or products or whatever that are age
Inappropriate for
obligated or whatever you want to say. Yeah, inappropriate or whatever, verifiable. So if I have a website, let's just say it's called npitechguys.com, I don't need to care about age. There's nothing on there that requires age. I don't need to worry about that. Okay, but if you're running, the site of Sam or Jay is going to be the top dog guy and you're going to gamble on us, and so it's now you got to be 21 to decide that Jay's going to win, Sam's going to lose, then you got to, but that's on those guys, not me. And not on the broader internet, not if you check the weather, not if you go see where a movie's at or whatever the case may be. I mean, you can even go to Plugged In Magazine and say, is this movie appropriate for young people? But, hey, even if mom says Johnny can do that, unless Johnny's logged in as mom, now it's mom's account that's over 21, but Johnny's on it, and Johnny's 9. Now what?
Yeah, really,
So
this
all
is
I'm
the
saying
job
is
of
there's
parents.
no way this is even, absolutely no way this is even usable, Jay.
I agree, but doesn't stop California and their lawmakers from, trying to muscle everybody else into it. This is why Microsoft, maybe they were ahead of the curve. Maybe Redmond, knew something we didn't, and that's why they're pushing everybody into Microsoft accounts, because this is exactly the kind of thing that you need to comply with something like this. Otherwise, just regular operating systems. And then how do you define software? Like, is a calculator a software?
Well, what if mom's sleeping and then the son grabs mom's finger and presses it on the little thing, and so it logs in, and now it's mom's account. Mom's sleeping, son's on the account. He's 10. He's good to go, right?
These things, and they always get bypassed. Like the kids that want to get around it, they either get their parents to get them around it, or they figure a way out. It's kind of a losing battle. And I think the spirit probably, they may have the right heart about it, but they're certainly not going about it the correct way.
Well, the way to go about it is say that parents are in charge of children. Okay? And parents need to step up to the plate and do that. And if they do, you just don't really have a problem, Jay. And if they don't, then you have a big problem, and you always will. And nothing you can do on the tech side is really going to do that. All it's going to do is make it more difficult. It's gotten to where I have so many passwords and so many codes, I can't even hardly operate in my own environment. Every time I want to do something, I get just so sidetracked, I can't hardly even function. We'll talk more about it. You're keeping an eye on tech with us. How's that? You're watching Tech Watch on your favorite station. All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. So Microsoft has got a backup problem now. We'll tell you about it, Jay.
Yeah, so you've seen this before when you've booted up your computer after a restart, and all of a sudden it's saying, hey, we've got a backup solution for you. Do you want a backup? And like Microsoft, a lot of their patterns, you have this dark pattern to get out of it. Like you've got to know to hit the skip, and you got to back up once, and then you can get out of it and cancel. And they really make it difficult not to. And so I've seen a lot of people, sometimes elderly people, sometimes people that just aren't as computer savvy as the rest of us, or tech guys. We obviously sometimes we fall into that trap of being like, come on, you should have known better. But they really make it difficult. And so if you say yes to this, and this is their OneDrive solution, it backs up. The problem with it is, and I've tried to get somebody now out of this backup recently this week, and that's why I bring it up. OneDrive creates these virtual path problems all over. So, for example, if you have CBAC users, and then the user, and then desktop, now you'll have a CBAC user OneDrive desktop. And those two places look like they're the same, but they're really not. And it becomes slow. So the problem they were having, this is what started it all, was the guy would say, man, I'd go to scan something, and it was just taking forever for the scan to show up. Well, because the scan was being dropped onto his desktop in a scans folder, but it was now being routed through the OneDrive desktop scans folder. It had to
so
go
you're
on.
just not even on the right desktop there, buddy.
Yeah, so not only do you have the confusion of being in the wrong path, which the paths look very similar unless you know what you're looking for, it has to get there, sync up, and then it shows up after it's synced. Anyway, it's a massive problem, and also I haven't seen this personally, but I've seen or heard of people that if you don't uninstall this right, if you don't back out of it correctly, you can very easily accidentally delete all your files, because once it has moved your files into the cloud, if you just say, no, I don't want that, stop doing that, and you don't transfer them back to the local PC through their system, like say you just go in and uninstall OneDrive after this has happened, you can lose all your content because it literally moves your stuff out.
You've transferred it to the drive.
They've
now
transferred
you
it
get
out.
rid of the drive. Right.
Yeah. It's a mess, and people don't understand it well enough. I even had to do some research just to get my arms around it to back this out the correct way.
Yeah, and Dropbox has had similar problems too, where they basically tried to update their business accounts, and they used to have just kind of root folders was the only kind of rights they have. Now that you have rights of subfolders and teams and all this other complicated stuff. But so I used to have a thing that was like C:\Dropbox. And now it's like C:\Dropbox /Sam Bushman / this and that. And so now all my paths are all jacked for everything that I do. And then they just put this, what's it called? It's like a shortcut, but what are those things called?
Paths or dynamic paths.
Yeah. Anyway, and so they have a file that just makes that dynamic path just appear. And the problem is it's not where you think it is and stuff, but it looks like it is if you're not really careful. And anyway, it's just a disaster. And I don't know why they want to do all these things to make these so complicated. Why are they doing that?
Look, I understand.
If your backup drive is good and people like it, then just be clear.
Right.
You're saving to your local computer. You're saving to a backup cloud drive. Here's your choice. Don't make it to where I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm around in circles, or I back out and I click this. Now I don't know where I am. And
don't trick
my
people
file
into
was
it.
here a minute ago. And don't do all that stuff.
If you have to trick people into doing this, you're probably not going about it the right way. Because if your solution, if OneDrive is just awesome, word of mouth will go around. People say, hey, you lost all your files the other day? Why aren't you running OneDrive? Everybody does that, and it'd be like, come on. There's ways to get this. The other thing that bugs me, though, about this is you get those dark paths that come up. You get those tricky screens. Well, this guy was already paying for a backup solution. He was paying for Backblaze. He had a perfect in-place backup solution. So OneDrive shouldn't even really be asking about this.
And if OneDrive wants to do it right, don't get me to save my things to OneDrive. Don't do that. Get me to save it on my local computer and then mirror it to OneDrive.
Right. Don't move it to OneDrive.
Don't move it there, and because now I've got people that I consult for, and they've got some stuff on their computer, some stuff in Dropbox, some stuff on OneDrive, and they don't know where anything is.
I know. That's actually the typical user.
The problem is they're doing it to themselves. So if I go and move all their stuff to Dropbox and say, okay, you're good, it's at Dropbox. Then the next time they save, OneDrive comes up and they don't pay attention, and now they've just saved it to OneDrive again.
Well, or they're running Microsoft Office and it's defaulting now to OneDrive. as the save
or
location.
whatever. Yeah. And so I'm just saying it's disaster, ladies and gentlemen. And we only bring this up not just to rip on everybody, but we're hoping if they listen to us, maybe somebody at Microsoft will go, you know, these guys are right. And we got to, and maybe they can make some changes that can make a difference, Jay. I don't mind that OneDrive can be a great product and people might want to use it. That's fine.
Right.
Just be clear, consistent, easy, and don't make it confusing where people lose their stuff or can't find their stuff or they're not sure what they're doing. That's just not helpful. If you want to create great products, make it clear as a bell. You're going to save your file. Where do you want to save the file? Here are your choices. And just be clear.
Yeah. And I think that some people don't want to understand that. Some people don't care. You know, it's a tough environment. It reminds me of everybody fighting over PDF extension. You know, it used to be you had to have Adobe to open a PDF. Okay, fine. Now you got different readers out there, Foxit, Sumatra, other ones like that. But then all of the browsers got into this war of trying to take over. Whether it was Edge, Google, Firefox, whatever, they're all trying to take over PDF association and fight over who gets to open PDFs. It's like, guys, can't we just get along? Why are you guys having this fight on my desktop?
Now, all you do is you say this. Hey, here's a PDF extension. Here's the things on the computer in a list that you can use to access this PDF. Choose one. And if you want to click a box and make it your default, fine. And then it'll be the default. And then there's got to be an easy way to say, hey, I want to reselect the program that opens my whatever extension it be, PDFs, MP3s, whatever. And hey, now I get my list back and choose one and say I would like that one to be the default, or I want to choose every time or whatever.
Right.
They've got those. They just only pop up once in a while and they're confusing and sometimes they're there.
Well, and they are there. If you right click on a file, you can say open with, and then you can go down
unless
and
the
select
open
which
with
one.
isn't there.
Yeah, if they hidden the menu. But, you know, it's there, but it's kind of buried. I mean, it's not intuitive. People don't know it by, you know, it's not what they expect. And so, and half the time they don't even know. They're like, I don't know why my PDF opens in my browser. I used to open in Adobe.
Right. Well, since this is Rant Tech Watch, we're just ranting on everything. Let me rant on something else, Jay.
Absolutely.
Now cheap PCs may be disappearing. They say shortages of memory, global tensions are causing higher prices on PCs. So the days of the cheap PC are probably gone.
We're seeing that for sure.
Yeah. International Data Corporation, they're predicting 11.3+% increase. It's due to transportation. It's due to memory. It's due to all these things. But the days of the $500-$600 PC is going to be more like the days of the $800, $1,200 PC going forward. And they say that the memory problems will probably be solved by 2027, 2028. But then they say, but because of all these other things, we don't think PCs are coming down anytime soon.
You know, I've seen this before. And I guess I'm old enough to see that this kind of happens in cycles where PCs get expensive and then they get cheap, and different options happen. You know, I remember in times in the past where it was way cheaper to build your own PC, just buy the components and build it. Recently, it's been way cheaper to just buy like these mini PCs that are rocking super fast and in the sub $500, sub $600 categories. I mean, some of them even,
and they've got everything on them.
$200-$300.
There's nothing you have to touch, buddy. It's happening.
Yeah, and I would say 5-6 years ago, the best way to buy a PC was to buy a used Dell that had been like in some lease fleet for a big hospital or something. You know, so it always changes, and I think we'll see a new solution probably come up of where the best place to get a PC is.
Yeah, Pies will get smarter and faster and better, and then pretty soon, hey, it'll be an operating system battle, and you'll be on a Linux Pi, and you know, all I'm telling you is things are changing that way, and there's going to be morphing because some of these slower laptop or whatever machines now are, I mean, a Pi's almost as good as they are.
Well, I'll tell you this on a side note about Raspberry Pis. You know, they're getting more expensive as they get more memory, and they've had some shortages for things too. And you know, your average Pi, complete with a case and a power supply and all that stuff, is running in the, you know, over 100, like a 120, 150 kind of area. Well, right now you can buy these computers like from GMK Tech that are smaller, believe it or not, than the Raspberry Pi itself. They're a little bit taller maybe, but the footprint itself is smaller. And we've been playing with some of these, and these, you know, can run anywhere from 158. The last one I just bought was about 250, but it had some more memory and specs and stuff. This has a hard drive built in, an M.2 drive, and this is running full Windows 11. And to me, it's a better deal, especially if you want to remote into it. And I know you can do that with Linux and some other things on Pi, but if you want things that have to run under Windows, or you're just naturally used to Windows more than Linux and things like that. In fact, right now I've got one of my sons is using one of these just as a test in his office every day as his everyday driver PC, and it's a tiny PC that I think we spent like $158 on. And literally, I mean, it's the size of, it's smaller than a baseball. I'll tell you that much in your hand. It's, it's
And what are they
tiny.
called again?
They're made by GMK Tech, and there's a bunch of other people. There's one that's
But what is it called though? Is it just a normal mini PC, or what is it called?
Sometimes people call them NUCs, but it's not the same thing. They do use those processors sometimes, like the E100s and stuff.
So you got to be careful, because sometimes they get versions of Windows that aren't full blown, or sometimes they get unique processors. As we mentioned on the last show, they're forking Windows, and so all I'm trying to tell people is understand and be careful what you're really getting, because it's going to get very difficult to where you're not going to know really what you're getting unless you know what to watch for.
And these are not ARM processors; they are x86, and it's all your normal Windows. But it's interesting now that these full computers are competing in that. Formerly, you'd have thought only a Raspberry Pi could get you at that kind of level.
And now the Raspberry Pi doesn't really have an edge unless they can make their stuff cheaper. So
no,
again,
and if you want to get a couple
lot
generations,
of forces are going to change things.
If you want to get a couple generations older PC too, like those refurbished Dells or something, you can do the same thing. You can buy computers $100 cheaper than a Raspberry Pi and still have a full blown computer. That's doing great, especially for some dedicated task or whatever.
Yeah, then you start to say the value of the Pi is that it runs on very little power, and that it's this kind of
That's the
stuff.
other
And
thing.
if you lock down the SD card that it's on, then oftentimes it's more stable because it doesn't have to keep writing to the card and possibly have problems
Very
like that.
true.
So there's a lot of things that you can do. Windows, it's a lot harder to do those things.
That's right. And what's interesting about these is the power consumption of them. I've seen these running 5-10 watts. I mean, just sipping at power. It's pretty incredible.
And it's going to get better. I mean, we're, with AI and everything else, that they're going to get smarter and they're going to get better. Speaking of this, Jay, did you see this story? Engineers at two, I don't know what you say. They're in Vienna, I guess. They have developed the world's tiniest QR code. Did you see this?
No, I have not.
Measuring only 1.98 square micrometers.
I don't think I could have seen that, Sam, actually.
No, well, you can't with the naked eye, believe it or not. That is the problem, or that is the point. It's the smallest code, the smallest QR code, and it's in the Guinness Book of World Records. And when we get back, I want to talk about this because people think, well, what's the value of that?
Can my camera scan that?
Well, not as it currently stands, no. But I'll tell you what we can do. We'll do it in seconds. We keep an eye on tech so you don't have to. Yeah, these developers in Vienna, I guess, created the smallest QR code in the world. It's in the Guinness World Records now, or Guinness Book of World Records, I should say. And this thing is so tiny you can't even see it with your naked eye, Jay. Give us the rest of the details, and then let's talk about this.
Yeah, apparently you have to use a microscopic ceramic QR code, or you have to use an electron microscope to see this. It's on ceramic. It's a QR code created not just as innovation, but also as a potential solution for ultra-durable data storage. The code is inscribed when focused ion beams make pixels of just 49 nanometers wide, can be scanned with a standard smartphone once magnified on a screen, it says. So,
yeah, once magnified on a screen. That's the point, though.
You got to use the electron microscope to see it, and then you can scan it with your code on the screen. The ceramic material can be used theoretically to allow the area the size of a sheet of printer paper to store over 2 terabytes of data. Following this breakthrough, scientist Alexander Kimbauer from the Two-Win University, or wherever that is, aims to enhance the technology for broader industrial applications. The product is in collaboration with storage film Cerabyte. This also reminds me of when they want to tag things, either for people stealing stuff or whatever. You can mix these tiny micro tags into dyes or different things, and be able to verify that somebody was at some place or took something.
Yeah. And oftentimes they have to disable them before they leave the store so they don't go off or whatever. And I've been playing a lot in warehouses for some of my clients, Jay, working with RFID and stuff like that. And I mean, the technology is amazing when you use RFID. I mean, I can literally install an RFID reader with some antennas on it and everything else. It's pretty powerful. And when you drive a forklift in full of boxes or pallets or whatever else, it can literally scan every box that's got an RFID tag on it. And boom, you've got this. Hey, you just drove, 563 of this, 287 of that. Through our bay door, and we've got record of it now. And I mean, some of the technology they're doing is amazing, Jay.
I've seen
You've got
that.
these scanners they're on forklifts, and you can drive down an aisle and just move your forks of your forklift way high, and it can literally scan things all around it on racks, and so you can just drive up and down your aisles and do inventory counts. And I mean, this stuff's incredible what they're doing.
The most incredible part of that is how it can scan so deeply and get that ping back from all of the devices without missing a single one. That's truly incredible to me.
It is, and it's because of their antennas. It's because of the scanners. It's lightning fast, and it's amazing how they're doing it. So anyway, I'm playing with these RFID tags and some of these scanners, and I'm renting a scanner. There's called a sled scanner, which means it's just the scan capability and the brains of it. Then you connect it via Bluetooth to your phone, and then you install software that then lets the phone communicate with the sled scanner, and that way the scanner doesn't have a screen on it. Some of the other scanners that you get would be the sled scanner, but it would have a screen on it and an operating system. So you kind of marry your cell phone and the scanner part, whereas they're separate if it's a sled scanner, but they're together. And when they're together, then it has all the capabilities of a normal scanner people are used to. But you say, well, why would you even have a sled scanner? Because they can take a beating, and they can be in the environment, and they can be on the end of your forklift, and they can be all these places where you don't want screens to get damaged, or you don't want buttons to get pressed, or you don't want. And so anyway, all I'm telling you is it's really cool technology, and I'm playing with it. And anyway, maybe boring to some, but I don't want to get too much in the weeds to where it bores people, but I want people to realize how advanced some of this technology is. And you say, well, what would I use this tiny QR code that I can't even see for? Because eventually systems can see it. And eventually those systems can then tap into vast amounts of data stored on these things. Anyway, it's just tremendous what can be done. And some of these scanners, if you put the right antennas on them and everything else, they can literally see like 40 feet away, Jay.
That's amazing. And, it reminds me of the commercials you used to see. This was even 10, 15 years ago, where, the guy's walking through the grocery store or whatever, or Walmart, and he's just putting stuff in his pocket, and he walks through the scanner on the way out, and it just rings everything up for him. And he's got everything, the bill, he just grabs the receipt, and he's on his way out, And,
and that's what Amazon was doing with some of their stores too. But then they kind of had to.
Yeah, but they were doing it the wrong way. They were doing that with AI and cameras, trying to track and see what everything you picked up or put back.
Yeah, no, you got to put RFID tags. And then, hey, as long as the RFID tags are all in your cart or all near you, when you go through, it just happens. And anyway, there's other ways to do it. And I'm telling you that Costco or Sam's Club does some of this stuff too, right?
Yeah.
You can walk around Sam's Club and put stuff in your cart, and as long as you have your phone and you're logged into the app or whatever else, it can total you up and let you leave too. So there's all kinds of competing ways to do this. And the future is this kind of stuff, I'm telling you right now. And the big companies have it. They're mainly using it in the back end of warehouses and everything else, but it's coming to the public. And I'm telling you right now that even smaller warehouses are starting to implement some of this stuff. And that's where consultants like me get to play with the technology and help people implement it and stuff like that. It's kind of fun, kind of interesting, kind of a trip if you're not really a tech person, but there you go.
As a quick side note, speaking of retail and stuff, Walmart is just announced that they are going to move all of their shelf pricing to displays, basically like e-ink displays, so that they can manage pricing better across all their stores. And they're not that's going to be automatically updated, which means, they didn't say this on their press release, of course, but it means they can even have dynamic pricing to where things change price throughout the day, maybe more expensive or less expensive or whatever, but they can change prices instantly.
Because when Sam comes in after work, he's kind of the blue-collar guy. When Jay comes in at lunch, he's the white-collar guy. Charge him more than Sam. I mean, I'm just saying, it's that kind of an idea, though, right?
Yeah, like hurricanes coming. Well, you better crank up the price of water. Who knows?
All I'm saying is I'm not comfortable with that.
I think it's fantastic technology. As somebody who also works with a store, the pricing is really hard to do, and it's very labor intensive. To get out there and change all the store shelves, and sometimes if you want to individually price items, it's always wrong. It's always a problem. You're always getting expected for it and stuff, and dinged for it.
Yes, but you know what? I think in America we have too many choices to a great degree too. I mean, I'm a choice guy. I believe in choices, but when you get too many choices, that's part of the problem. You got these massive stores with a gazillion SKUs and stuff like that, and And so
I
I think
like
it's
that.
hard in that regard. I like some of it, but some of it becomes problematic too. Because I think that they keep a lot of inventory on hand as a result of it, and it costs the stores more, and eventually they pass that along to you. And, would you rather pay more for a product and have 10 choices, or pay a little less for the product and have 5 choices? Because at some point it costs money to manage all that, to have all those SKUs on hand.
That's true.
To keep the pricing up to date on all those different SKUs. So I'm not saying give somebody no choice. I'm not saying, hey, you've got choice A. Hey, you want batteries? Here's choice A. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't need 9 choices. 4 will do. Thanks.
Yeah, but because of the extra competition, usually you end up with 10 choices and lower prices.
Well, I wish that was true. I don't see lower prices anywhere, but I know what you're trying to say. And that's the quintessential problem. Anyway, I find that interesting, and I just thought I'd go off on a side bender for that tiny QR code. I found that fascinating. And I agree, in day-to-day use right now, it doesn't really apply to the average person because you can't even see it. But I'm just telling you, technology will find ways to use those. And think about that. You scan this little teeny thing you can't even see, and buddy, there's how many gigabytes, or what was it, of data?
Yeah, saying that you can put 2 terabytes. Well, remember, this is a visual thing. This isn't like you scan it like an RFID. So you got to see it, and if you have a microscope or whatever. But they're saying, hey, as far as packing information on a page of paper, you could have these codes that are so small. Yes, it would be like microfiche, where you'd have to zoom in with some kind of reader to see the thing. But you could fit 2 terabytes of data on a piece of paper. That's pretty incredible.
And I'm just saying that right now the technology is not really usable because of your point. But someday it will be, though. There'll be things that'll have it, and you won't know. It'll just do it, and it'll instead of it being manual like microfiche, like you're talking about, it will just be there, though, right?
Right, exactly.
I'm just saying that there's going to be execution. So there's one strategic. Strategic says we want all this capability. We've got it now. It's awesome. Now let's bring it to the tactical. How do we let people use it without having to know about the tech? Right? Right now, I just know that I hold down my clutch or my gas or my brake pedal and I start my car. How does all that happen? Well, it's these kind of things that you're hearing about now that then get put in tactical reality where you can use them. See what I mean when we say we keep an eye on tech so you don't have to? That's what we're talking about. Hey, man, you got a password problem? All you got to do is put all your passwords into a password manager and your world's going to get great. It's going to be all Jake. It's no problem until it's a problem. Swiss researchers now, Jay, are saying that 3 password managers have a problem.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, is that there's a problem that's been identified in 3 widely used password managers, those being Bitwarden, LastPass, and Dashlane, as reported by PC World. The issues stem from usage of old cryptography from the 90s that's being implemented into complex code architectures, increasing the risk of the attack. There's probably like a downgrade attack that's happening. Of course, they don't go into much detail here because they've notified all of these companies. They said that they've conducted 12 attacks on Bitwarden, 7 on LastPass, and 6 on Dashlane using a simulated server behaviors. Prior to the disclosure, the research team notified all 3 companies about the vulnerabilities, allowing them time to develop first. And this mostly affects, like, so for example, with Bitwarden, you can self-host your own server, and so you're not even relying on them at all. And that's where the issue is. It's a server issue problem. And they say that despite the vulnerabilities, there's no immediate danger as the password remains secure so long as the servers aren't compromised. So it is interesting. I still think you're far better off with a password manager than without one, and just reusing
by far
the same,
and that's why I wanted to bring up this story, Jay, because I want to really take a step back from it. Sometimes you get security releases that for an IT guy, it's important to be aware of. But the average person, when they hear about it, all it does is make them kind of panic and freak, like, oh my gosh, now I can't even trust Bitwarden. What do I do? This is crazy. No, hold on a minute. Step back. They've found a vulnerability that's very uniquely possible that they're giving time. And the reason they announced this is because they're giving these companies time to fix it. The reason they're not panicking or telling you it's a big problem is because it's really not a huge problem. Can it be exploited? Yes. Is it weird and hard to exploit? Yes. Will it really affect you and your Bitwarden account? Probably not, unless you're in a very unique circumstance. So I bring it up to let you know that some security bulletins, or whatever you want to say, are really more for knowledge from us security folks. They don't relate So if you have Bitwarden or you have LastPass, this is not really something you need to panic about or whatever else. And I wanted to make that very clear because it's going around the internet and people are starting to freak, Jay.
Yeah, this is not the hair on fire moment. This is just okay, good, they're working on it.
Well, and I'm glad that they
good.
found the vulnerability, and I'm glad they're giving these companies time to resolve them, and I'm glad they're not releasing details to make it worse.
Exactly.
So I just want to put that kind of in perspective. And I thought that was worth doing so. Now, I don't understand this next story, Jay, really at all. I think it's psychotic.
Okay, over 1 million Android apps have exposed 700 terabytes of data, user data, due to hard-coded API keys and security flaws. Researchers discovered that 72% of AI apps in the Google Play Store have secrets, we put that in quotation marks, in their code, with 81% connected to Google Cloud, making them vulnerable to unauthorized access. The study examined 1.8 million Android apps and found similar issues in 156,000 iOS apps in the Apple Store. Users are advised to be cautious when downloading new apps, especially those requesting sensitive data. So I guess they're using the same API keys, or there's reuse on it. I don't know.
And I've seen apps like this, and I've actually been the consultant from a programming point of view to help people stop this because programmers are inadvertently doing it. They don't mean to, and it's hard to explain why. I don't want to get into all of it. My whole point with this story again as well is when you hear stories like that, Jay, you just think, I'm throwing up my hands. I mean, everybody's hacked and all my information's already gone. Why do I even care? And the sad part about these releases is that's the wrong attitude. Again, this is more for coders than it is for the average Joe. Yes, are you somewhat vulnerable? Yeah, but not really more than you were before.
Nobody's invulnerable.
Is it? Yeah, nobody's invulnerable, but you're not also, not everybody's not just hosed. The world's not just melting down just because this data can be breached. The reality is a lot of these programmers are getting a handle on it, and they're improving it, and they're changing it, and it will get better. And this bulletin is to help things get better, not to make everybody panic that everybody's been hacked. Okay?
Right.
And that's something really important to understand. It reminds me back in the day of Y2K, Jay. When Y2K happened, everybody's like, oh my gosh, the whole world's going to melt down. All the clocks on the computers are going to melt down, and everybody's going to be screwed, and it's going to be horrible. And they made such a big deal about it before Y2K that most programmers actually solved most of the code problems and fixed most of it before it was ever a problem.
Exactly.
And you would say, well, they shouldn't have cried wolf on this thing. No, I think the warnings are what made everybody look into their stuff and make sure it was okay. So these warnings from time to time are good, is what I'm saying.
But the funny part of that is the people that never believed that it was a problem were just like, see, I told you guys there was nothing to it.
But they're wrong. The fact that it got announced and talked about and everything else is what made people do the work to make it wasn't a problem.
That was a hair on fire problem.
It was. And those people who think that it wasn't and who think, oh, see, I told you so, they don't even know. I'm just telling you behind the scenes, a lot of stuff got done that prevented that problem. Yeah. And these two examples of Bitwarden and some of these password managers and these Android apps and some of these iPhone apps using API keys and things like that are kind of vulnerable, this is the same scenario. We're going to prevent a problem by knowing about this and taking action about it before you'll probably even have a problem if done right. And that's the reason for these reports, Jay.
I think one of the big takeaways here, though, is from this story is don't use your main personal device, like your cell phone, as just to install any old app every time it comes down. Get an old iPad or whatever you got, another Android phone if you're just testing different things, or you want to play games, you can download random stuff onto. I'm pretty selective about what I put on my main phone, and I think there's some good prudence to doing that.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's for sure. All right, there's a massive recall, Jay. Tell me about this.
Ford has issued a recall for approximately 1.7 million vehicles due to issue with the rear view camera, as stated in 2 recall notices from the National Traffic Safety Administration. The first recall affects 2021 to 2026 Ford Broncos, and then some 21 through 24 Ford Edge models, where the cameras may fail to display while in reverse. The second recall involves the Ford Escape. That's the models 20 through 22, 20 through 24 Ford Explorers, 20 through 24 Lincoln Aviator, and the 20 through 22 Lincoln Corsair. With the concern being that the cameras are displaying inverted images. Both issues could hinder...
I'm in left, Jay.
Yeah. No, your other left, Sam.
That's right.
Both issues could hinder rear visibility, increasing the risk of accidents. Ford plans to correct the issue by issuing a software update. starting mail notifications to owners in March 30th, and people can verify the recall. They go to the NHTSA or USA Today recall database to see if they're affected. But I think you probably know if you were affected by this pretty quick,
Well, I agree. Unless you just think that's the way it is, and so you kind of get used to it being backwards or whatever, right?
Yeah, but aren't mirrors backwards anyway?
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying is people might not really even. I mean, they might think that's the way it's supposed to be and just adapt to it.
Yeah, no, I think that people will figure this out. And, rear view cameras, a lot of people love them. I mean, I do think they're good. They have helped with incidents, especially like backing over kids and things like that. But it's pretty new. They've only been mandated since 2018. And, and even then in some cars, in fact, I was driving a car off a lot yesterday, and it had a backup camera. It was a 2018, so it was one of the first years where it was mandated. But the camera is so far away from you and so small, it was comically ridiculous. Like it was, the size
Well,
of
I have a problem with these mandated cameras in the first place.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I'm just saying that a lot of people don't like to use them. A lot of people prefer the old, look back, your body just turn around and look back, and some people. But all these mandated things do is increase cost for everything.
Exactly. I was gonna say you take that mandate and you multiply it by 1,000, and you say, well, now you got to have screens and you got to have cameras, and people wonder why cars cost so much. A lot of that is due to things like that, because there's a lot of people that want a simple car. They're like, hey, I don't mind roll down windows and I don't need a bunch of features. I just want it to go and
right. And we're seeing all kinds of problems. Like Waymo now is having problems. Those are the people that do the autonomous vehicle things or whatever.
Right.
I guess they blocked an ambulance in Austin during responses to a mass shooting, and Austin police had to move the obstructing vehicle to a garage. Reuters reported that a National Transportation Safety Board investigation found that this stuff literally happens all the time. Waymos are passing school buses, which is against the law, and doing all these things. And NBC News covered a Waymo vehicle driving through an active investigation, kind of a police roped off place or whatever. It just went through it anyway. And they're using AI and all this kind of stuff, all these advanced sensors. They've logged over, 20 million real world miles and then 20 billion simulated miles, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they operate 24/7 in several U.S. cities, including San Francisco, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Miami, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, just a bunch of cities now.
Orlando's brand new.
They say that it's going to be 3.6 billion? Or 364 million, I guess it is, in just near like next year or whatever. I just find the whole thing crazy. Like, I appreciate that they're working on this, but I kind of think we're rolling this out a little bit too prematurely. And then they say, well, what's the cost going to be if I use an Uber versus I use the autonomous vehicle? How much am I going to save? And they're like, we're still working on pricing, which means it's probably going to cost more. It's just going to run everybody out of a job and cost more. And if we're not very careful, it's going to be very, I don't know, unsafe. We almost got ran over by a Waymo the other day.
Those are legitimate concerns, but I wonder, though, when I see stories like this, are those so rare, those happenings, that they're making news because of it? Or are we just seeing that this is just like an everyday occurrence? These things are always doing crazy stuff.
No, it's both. What I mean is it's not one or the other extreme. It's in the middle. So I think for the most part, they're pretty safe and they do pretty well. But just like people, sometimes they don't do well. And so, I mean, I just know that we went in a Waymo and it worked perfect. And then we were driving in an Uber and a Waymo almost caused a crash with us. So all I'm telling you is I think it's somewhat of both, Jay.
I think, and last I read, let me put it that way, though statistically, you're far better off in the computer-controlled car than the human-controlled car, as far as it's kind of like flying planes. They say a lot of people are worried about crashing in a plane, and rightly so, because you're in the air and there's a lot more things that could go wrong. But overall, they say the safety in a plane per traveler,
is way better than a car.
Is way higher than a car. You're much more safer in a plane, and I think it's the same thing about the vehicles. Is just that people get more anxiety about it. Like, there's nobody driving this thing. What am I going to do?
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I've been in a Waymo car, and it's a little bit disconcerting. And a lot of it's because how I grew up. I grew up that, hey, man, you got to keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel, and you got to come on. And when there's nobody there, it's just disconcerting. So I think it's going to be an adjustment for people to get used to it. And it's also going to be, hey, we got to work on, giving these cars more rules. Like, hey, when there's red tape, you can't just go through that and stuff.
True
Right?
story of just a little incident. Yesterday, I told you I was at a dealership. Talked to this lady that's at the dealership, and she was talking about her drive home up into North Georgia, and it's like a 6-hour drive. And this is not even a full self-driving vehicle. This is just a vehicle with like lane keeping and collision avoidance and stuff. And she says she watches Netflix on the way home when she does that, when she goes back to her parents' house. I was like, you're watching Netflix in the car with just the car? You said, oh yeah, everybody does it. And I was like,
no, dude.
I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Not everybody does it. That's psychotic. That's crazy. Most people don't, and they'd freak if they knew she did it, and that's insane and not safe. And I'm just grateful that I live thousands of miles from her.
I couldn't believe it, but apparently not just her. I guess other people are doing this. So be careful out there. Just because you have collision avoidance and lane keeping, you still need to keep your eyes on the road.
All right, Microsoft is set to launch Xbox mode on Windows 11. Did you see this, Jay?
That sounds delicious. Not really.
No, it sounds like they're just going to dilute Windows 11 to be in all things for everybody, and it's going to get all diluted and convoluted and everything else. It's going to have a console mode. It's a console-like gaming interface and everything else. And they say it's going to be incredible because you're going to be able to get games, all kinds of games on your PC and your Xbox and everything else. And I'm just saying they're finding out that PCs do most things better than special devices do, appliance devices, if you will, because they're more powerful. And you can tweak them and play them and pimp them and do all this kind of stuff to them. So anyway, I'm just telling you that Windows 11 is coming to make an Xbox experience on your PC. Check it out. I'm Sam. He's Jay. You're you. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. NPITechguys.com.